you found us. We're on time for a change. I say I'm going to be on at 2 p.m. Pacific, and yeah, here I am, 2 p.m. Pacific. Welcome to my secret podcast. It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. This is our Takeout. Our Emil Amok's Takeout. My takes on all things considerable. All things. All we consider all things. Today we're going to cover baseball. Shohei Ohtani. What a great game. Yes, the Dodgers won 20 to something. Shohei Ohtani had this unbelievable game. He joined the 50-50 club. Not that, I mean, it's kind of an arbitrary thing. 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases. No one's ever done that. I mean, Shohei Ohtani clearly now is better than Babe Ruth ever was. I mean, I think Babe Ruth might have had 50-50 if you think of 50 as waistline. Then Babe Ruth was 50-50. But Shohei Ohtani, now here's the thing. Shohei Ohtani is an Asian in America. Not an Asian American. An Asian American. An Asian in America. He's a Japanese guy. The greatest player of all time. I think we just have to cop to it. And Asian Americans like myself will say, hey, he's one of us, sort of. Well, he plays here. He's really Japanese. The distinction is real, but we'll blur the distinction because he's great, right? But I just want to bring up a couple years back when Stephen A. Smith made some ignorant comment 3 years ago, and he asked the question whether or not Shohei Ohtani was good for baseball. And, you know, I called Stephen A. Smith back then the Tucker Carlson of sports. I don't know, the African-American Tucker Carlson of sports. But what he said about Shohei Ohtani back then was just plain racist. I know he apologized, but he said it. It's important, and it was just 3 years ago. I mean, he said, yes, Ohtani is big time. But then he said this. But the fact that you have a foreign player who doesn't speak English that needs an interpreter, believe it or not, I think contributes to harming the game to some degree. When that's your box office appeal, it needs to be somebody like Bryce Harper, white guy, Mike Trout, white guy, those guys. And unfortunately, at this moment in time, that's not the case. My God, that's what Stephen A. Smith said 3 years ago. In July 2021, before the All-Star game. And now, I hope he's eating something. Hope he's eating his hat. He's got $16 million, or he gets $16 million a year or so, right? He has a lot of hat to eat. But can you believe someone saying that? Someone who is Stephen A. respected? I don't know, but like I said, I can never look at Stephen A. and not think of that statement he said, where he says, but the fact that you have a foreign player who doesn't speak English that needs an interpreter, believe it or not, I think contributes to harming the game to some degree. And that's your box office appeal. That's bad. That's bad. But then he added insult to injury. He says, it needs to be somebody like Bryce Harper, Mike Trout. In other words, it needs to be a white guy. Oh, Stephen A. Smith, you're $12, $15, $16 million a year. Got to call you out on that, buddy. You make that much money, you have to be called out for making that statement in 2021. And even though you asked for forgiveness, you apologize, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. When yesterday, Shohei Ohtani proved with his multiple home run game. I mean, it's just incredible. the game he had yesterday. And they're saying this has got to be the game for the ages. The Dodgers won 20-4, and Shohei Ohtani finished 6 for 6 with 10 RBIs. 6 for 6, 10 RBIs to join the 50-50 club. 50 stolen bases, 50 home runs, never happened. The greatest player of all time. Asian American? No. An Asian in America. All hail Shohei Ohtani. And once again, just a reminder of the ignorance of Stephen A. Smith for his comments 3 years ago. We'll never let you forget that, Stephen A. I never let you forget it. Never let you forget it. Quickly, some other things. We'll talk about Kamala's gun. She was on Oprah. We're with Oprah talking about she had a gun, and if someone comes into her house, if an intruder comes in, she shoot. I know about that. We'll talk about that a little later. Also, Vivek, we talked about my column on the Aldef blog about Springfield, Ohio. Talked to some Springfield purveyor of white people egg rolls. That's right. Brisket egg rolls with poblano cheese. He sells a ton of them. They came up on a list for an Asian food, but it's not really Asian food. Anyway, going to talk about Springfield because Vivek, he was saying how Vivek had his town hall. Vivek Ramaswamy had his town hall. We'll talk about that. And some other things with my guest today. And I'll swish him in. It's Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University.
It must be Friday.
Yeah, well,
thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So, Dan, so many things to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wanted to weigh in first on the Shohei thing because, that's a fun thing. Here's an Asian in America, the best player ever in America's game. It's no longer America's game, but it was invented in America, Abner Doubleday. I guess this is just the way it is, huh? I mean, who's going to have a 6 for 6, 10 RBI game ever again, like Shohei Ohtani?
Well, remember when certain other great players passed records and they were black?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we don't have to go back that far to remember when people were not only passing Babe Ruth's records, but also Ted Williams. And whatever record it was, people felt that they were unjustified. There must have been cheating, or this doesn't prove inferiority or superiority or equality. And that's in the background. That's part of the background. And so you have here an African American commentator doing the xenophobic thing, right? And it happens to be an Asian player. Now, you got to give it to Ohtani. Yes, he's great, but he's also big. And he's also strong as hell.
Yeah.
And even if he doesn't do a full hip swing, he hits home runs. I've seen him do a half-cocked swing, where it's mostly just his top hand.
Yeah.
And you see him release the bat halfway through the swing, right? And he's ready to just put it down. And that ball's gone, Yeah. So he's going to do it, and he's going to do it more. Okay, so he's a sensation just because he's great. He's partly a sensation because he's a Japanese person, because he's a foreigner. He's also sensational for that perspective. In effect, he's the new Bruce Lee.
I guess. I have seen him go, on tour. When the Dodgers are on the road, Asian Americans love Shohei Ohtani.
Hell yeah. They knew that they were going to get that market. They knew they were going to get that market.
Yeah.
Why did he go to L.A.?
Yeah.
Okay. Does there happen to be a huge Japanese American community down there? How about Korean American community down there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, California, the largest Asian population.
He could have come here too. That's right. But there's fewer Japanese Americans in Northern California than there are in Southern California. L.A.,
Yeah.
It's
We have a Japantown here.
yeah, I know, but
San Francisco.
it's not as Japanese as it used to be.
Yeah,
It,
that's
it, it is recovering. It is
yeah,
it is going through an ethnic rediscovery, right? With fourth generation Japanese Americans.
yeah. Well, all hail Otani. It's a good day for Asian Americans, and we have a slight Asian American tilt here on this podcast. Notice I didn't say Asian American slant, but an Asian American tilt. We're tilting always that way.
Yeah,
We gotta
you could use can't. Can't is
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
but
we gotta honor Otani for what he did
you could use
because
animal.
he's a once in a lifetime guy, right?
Oh no, this guy's going to be fun for a while. He's going to be fun for a while. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
the
but
Yankees are just ticked that they keep spending money on big people, but they didn't get this guy.
of course the Yankees did get Aaron Judge. He's
Yeah,
he's
no,
nothing
he's
to
not a slouch. He's certainly
yeah,
not a slouch,
yeah,
and he's
and
American. He's
he's
American.
American from
Yeah.
the Central Valley in California. But boy, if they
Well,
were able to get
that's another thing that cracks me up, right? Is that the rest of the most of the 48 states really don't like California. I'm not going to use the word hate. Some states populations do have a tendency to hate California, and they like to talk bad about us and everything, make fun of us. And then the thing that cracks me up is some of the things that they criticize about us are exactly the things we love about living in California. They make fun of beach life and surfers, and they make fun of people who do skateboarding and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going, okay, yeah, I think we really deserve to be criticized for all of that stuff, right? We got some of the best swimmers in the world, right? And they born and raised here, and then they go elsewhere, usually to Florida, to tune up for the Olympics, right? But it's it kind of cracks me up. It's like, okay, go ahead and hate us, right?
yeah,
Elsewhere
well,
in the world, people love California. They love San Francisco. When you say San Francisco and you're somewhere else in the world, they go, oh, hey.
well, it's an irrational political hate of California.
No,
It's
it's
not.
cultural too, dude.
Yeah, it's called because they think. When they say cultural, it's not just the skaters and the surfboarders. It's also the hippie thing. It's also the new age thing.
And it's also we're very brown.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's true too. Well, okay. Let's move on to the next thing. Speaking of brown people, the brown people making people upset in Springfield, Ohio. Actually, the people in Springfield. It's only a small segment in Springfield, Ohio, who are
Yeah.
upset. It's really the Republicans elsewhere who are using Springfield as a kind of as their big club that they're hitting all of America with.
Yeah.
Because the news broke, and I wrote about this in my column on the Aldef blog, that that it was a lie, and Donald Trump knew it was a lie. Haitians eating dogs and cats, legal immigrants, not illegal. They're here seeking asylum, so they're legal. They weren't eating dogs and cats. That was a lie, and the Trump campaign knew it. And yet, even though they knew about it at least a full day before the debate, there was Donald Trump using it as a point in the debate that
And
Tuesday night.
Vance backing him up.
Yeah, and Vance.
And Vance's very vehement argument was if Harris is going to use an illegal policy, okay, then the people who benefit from that policy, I can call them illegals, and everybody cheers, right? It's like, okay, you guys have tied yourself in so many knots that it doesn't make sense to a whole hell of a lot of other Americans, but yet 50% of the American voters are going to vote for this fool and his running mate.
Totally illogical. And what's more, even though Vance knows it's a lie, even though he knows that the cats and dogs thing is a lie, he defended it on Sunday, as recently as last Sunday, as saying, I can create any story. If
that was the way he defended, yes.
Yeah. I can create
it was really aggressive. It was if I have to create a story to draw people's attention,
Right.
to
For
the
the
issue,
American media. Yeah.
I'm going
For
to
the
do it.
American media to cover it, I'm going to do it. Like the lie, the ends justify the
That's
means,
right.
which is not true, which is not true. So Dan,
Well, okay. I
go ahead.
disagree with you.
Go ahead.
The ends justifies the means is true in many instances. Okay, at least in the rationality of the people who use that kind of measure. Okay,
Yeah.
and it's not a co-equal thing, right? People always say, "Well, both sides do it." It's really kind of stupid,
Well,
right?
wait a minute. How about the fact that all right, the ends justify the means? That means the lie is justified if
Yes,
it does.
if it does what it's supposed to do, which is attract people's attention to the issue. Now, that's where there's another fallacy, right? Because he
Mm.
believes that if they attract people to the issue, they will see the issue in the manner that he wants them to see it. And that is not true. That's where it falls apart. So
Yeah.
even though they can say the end justifies the means, or they do things that where it's clear that that's how they're acting, right? That's the
Mhm.
motivation. That's part of the motivation. They think you can get away with it. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. Well,
And well, they have been getting away for it with it, and that's
yes.
right. Yes,
And what we see, if the what the end does isn't justify the means. What happens is we see that they're lying, and as an electorate, we should be appalled that these people who want to lead us are such bald-faced liars.
yeah. Well, they shouldn't be just appalled. They should be attacking them aggressively. They should say, "There's no way that these people should get our votes." That's it. That's it. They got to say, "Look, this is beyond the pale. It's been beyond the pale."
Yeah.
How many times have we had these conversations and said and asked, why is it that half of the American electorate is still willing to stick with these people despite all of the various and sundry activities that have been proven? The guy was legitimately right impeached
Yeah.
twice, and the only reason he was not removed from office in either instance is because we didn't have the Senate, that the
Yeah.
Democrats did not have the Senate. Okay, that's it. And
Mm.
so they're able to simply sweep away the fact that there was this mountain of evidence in both instances of the impeachments, right? He has been charged twice at the state level, or twice at the state level. He's been convicted once at the state level. He has been charged 4 times for felonies, multiple felonies at the federal level. And the only reason that the strongest case against him isn't going forward is because of the corruption of a judge, a federal judge, again, appointed from the list of the Federalist Society and the Heritage Foundation.
And this is the thing that has a lot of people who are rational and sane. They look at this, they scratch their head and say, why aren't people more upset at the actions of Trump and Vance and their candidacy? But it makes me wonder also now, especially with this Springfield, Ohio situation. We know it's a lie. They're spreading a lie. And yet there's this idea of a campaign that is completely without shame. There is no shame at all. They are shameless. And you saying it's worse than being shameless.
Yeah, it's worse than being shameless, because to have shame means that you're reacting right
Mm.
to a societal standard. Right, there's a societal standard that you have violated, and you're supposed to suffer shame. And
Ah,
therefore, if you do suffer shame, then you're actually operating in conjunction with the standard, right?
mm,
You still screwed up, you still violated whatever the improprietous thing was that you did, right?
yeah.
But when you don't suffer shame, and you say you're shameless, that means you are aggressively attacking that value. You're not just doing something by mistake. It's not erroneous.
Mm.
Okay. It's an aggressive violation. Okay.
So it
So it's like
assumes that
being
there's
a venial sin versus a mortal sin.
it assumes there's a standard, but they're saying by aggressively attacking it, they're saying, hey, there's no standard.
Or that standard doesn't apply to us.
Yeah, we're
They
above the
want
law.
everybody else. They want everybody else to be limited in their behavior by those standards, right?
Right. To be honest, to not
Okay.
lie,
Yeah.
but they'll lie.
Yes. Yes.
they'll lie.
Yeah. We want
Yeah,
you to be honest and transparent because then we can trust what you're saying. Okay.
yeah.
We don't want to be held to that standard because we don't want we don't we don't want to think that we need to be honest. Okay. You know,
Right. And therefore, reasonable people like myself say, "You're shameless. You're without shame." And they're,
yeah.
they're saying,
And
"No,
well, you
no."
were probably I know that, see, you were paralleling this with Filipino-ness, right?
Yeah,
With traditional Filipino values, because traditionally now, and this is old tradition,
right.
which has been challenged by very talented and brilliant academics for at least the last 60 years or so.
Mm,
But the traditional definitions of Filipino culture were originally set up by white academics, including one of the famous ones was a Jesuit priest by the name of Frank Lynch. Okay,
mhm.
and his perspective, he was writing at about the same time that Skinner was writing. Okay, and
B.F. Skinner,
psychologist, BF,
psychologist. Okay.
BF, and I always
Yeah,
made fun of those initials because it had other meaning for us hippie folk. But
yeah.
anyway, and so Skinner had, of course, stimulus organism response. You remember that?
I
Stimulus
know about his
organism.
box, but I don't know about stimulus organ.
Yeah, and then yeah, it was adopted into particular kinds of experimentation by people, including Spock, right?
Yeah.
And
All right.
he's
So the idea though of shame comes in.
well. See, Lynch said shame is a major element of Filipino culture. He said there's four cardinal elements. Okay, there's big time. Now remember, he's a priest, so he's going to use words like cardinal.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
and they are hiya at the top, pakikisama, meaning uh, honesty and integrity with your in group, with your cadre, with your community, your family, etc. Okay, utang na loob, debt of prime moral obligation. So,
Utang.
for
Utang.
example, the debt that a child has to their parents for having birthed them, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that obligation. And amor propio, which is directly from the Latin and the Spanish, which means a sense of propriety, right? But it really means sensitivity to personal insult or personal affront. Okay. So he says these are the cardinal values of Filipino culture. And
So the first one was Hia.
here, the top,
Yeah.
the
H
top of
I
the,
Y A.
and they
HIYA.
translated, yes, and they translated it as shame.
Yeah.
My position, and I learned about this stuff in the writing in high school, and I was asking people about this around me, right? Some of them well-educated Filipinos, Filipino immigrants, and they gave me that pat answer, and I said, look, how can shame be a cardinal value? Yeah, are you telling me that people's sensitivity to transgressing and committing an inappropriate behavior, and then reacting with shame, that's a value? How can shame be a value? The propriety is the value. The thing that we violated, that's the value. Okay. And so people would say, well, no, this is the way. And it was true. It was
All right.
academic.
So now what Dan has done now, folks listening, is he's laid out these values of Philippine culture. And I was thinking about them as I heard people say, oh, Trump and Vance lying about Springfield. They are without shame.
That's right.
And that the
Walang
term
hiya.
the term in Filipino culture is they are walang hiya, without shame.
That's
And
right.
usually the idea of shame regulates your group to act appropriately. But
Yes.
now when you have people running for president of the United States acting without shame, who tells them they are shameless? I mean, someone has to stand up and say, you're shameless, get back in line. But this is where they are rogue, right?
See, what I had, the problem that I have with that traditional definition of Filipino culture is that essentially, how can you? you have to have a culture has to have values that allow someone to be heroic. And I looked at this thing. I said, Filipino culture has survived all of this colonization or quasi colonization, right? Outright colonization by the Spanish and the Americans, but and then near colonization by the Chinese. They had huge influence, right? So we survived all of that, and we still are distinctively Filipino. So how could that happen? And the answer is really simple. The four cardinal values are BS. They're only an element, a small element of the reality of Filipino culture. And one of the first academics that I ever recognized that did away with that stuff and developed a true nationalist psychology, a
Mhm.
Filipino culture based, right, internal, domestic culture based psychology was a guy named Virgilio Enriquez, VE. Virgilio Enriquez. Also, his nickname was Ver, which I really dug because it's like truth. And
Yeah.
so he started a movement called Psicologiang Filipino, Filipino psychology in essence, and
Yeah.
it's a Filipino nationalist psychology. And he shows that those things that Lynch was calling cardinal values are really low on the scale, and that
No.
at the top of Tagalog language values, right?
Yeah. But Dan, the thing is, all right, we're going deep into this intellectual side, but there are the most,
I'm not
the
going to
majority.
apologize for being intellectual. You
I'm
want me
not
to
saying
apologize? I'm
that.
sorry.
No, I'm not. I'm not asking you to apologize. What I'm saying is that the majority of Filipinos believe in this idea of Hia.
Yes, they do, and they and
They
they
still
still,
do.
unfortunately, even though there's been 60 years of academic challenge against the traditional stuff, they still do the four cardinal value thing.
All right, but forget about the other three. The most important one I want to talk about is Hia, shame. The idea that shame could regulate behavior and make us all better people because we respect each other and we like each other. We want to tell each other the truth,
I'm
right?
trying to tell you, I can't accept that. That propriety, okay,
Yeah.
is the appropriate value.
All right, it's
Okay, and at
propriety,
the at the
but
top of all of those things is called the paninindigan. Okay,
yeah,
and so
but
here it
Dan,
is.
you
So
still
shame, if
shame
people think in
people.
those terms, no, if they think in those terms, okay,
Mhm.
then shame makes sense in the context, right, of not having that value, not observing the value. They're shameless, okay,
Yeah.
so they're not observing the value, and that's the only way uh, uh, that definition of
Okay, but
shame of
all right,
hell,
but look,
right, makes sense.
I appreciate the intellectual, uh, you know, dive into uh, Filipino culture here. I was trying to go, when people look at Trump and Vance and say they are without shame, they are shameless, they are lying, they are, you know, it, in Filipino culture, still because this is a dominant thing, all you need to do is call people without shame and they would self-regulate, they would correct their behavior. I mean, that
Maybe.
was the idea. You don't want to be without shame. It's like you're cast out, you're shunned, you don't want to be that, so that you
I think
become.
when you're a kid, you take it really seriously. The older you get, the less important that is. And what you discover is shamelessness only applies really to superficial social behavior. Okay, and the proof of that is that the Philippines has embraced dictatorships.
Oh yeah, yeah,
You know,
the
so
proof is, where was the shame where Marcos declares martial law?
right, right.
And I mean, the shame was not enough or you couldn't yell out shame to Marcos and he acts better and he regulates his behavior and says, okay, I'm going to drop my autocratic instincts and become.
Well, he was
And
really good. He actually covered the shame issue by explaining what he was doing in really what guys, it's better than face saving in intellectual ways that either excused or explained away his actions, so that people accepted him and the actions that he took, even though they were really authoritarian, right? Because they believed that authoritarian behavior was good. They
Oh
accepted.
yeah, they were convinced, and maybe that's what's happening in the United States, that they allow for the shamelessness of Trump Vance to continue because they believe in
That's what's
their
necessary.
yeah
That's what's necessary to achieve the goals that they want. So you have to talk in terms of what are those goals, right?
they've hoodwinked the people to believe, because every every inch of the way from Trump's advance, not with Vance, but before with Trump and now with Vance, when Trump would do something outrageous, and I would turn to someone, a Filipino, or anyone who was a Trump supporter, and I'd say, "Now, are you willing to dump him and
Yeah, that's right.
go with someone who is moral, someone who's doing the right thing?" And they never would. They never would say, "Okay, yeah, enough. This is enough. I'm ready to.
Would
I'm
they
ready to
even
back."
recognize? Would they even recognize that the action that you felt was worthy of criticism? Would they even accept that that was real?
No, well, there's a long list from early
Yeah,
on
but did
in
they accept it?
27.
Did they accept it as a fact?
Of course not. Of course not. I
Okay,
mean,
there it is.
you can mention Muslim ban. You could mention, all the other things from 2017, 2018, 2019. S-hole countries. So forth and so on. And the
Well,
list is
Filipinos are not the only ones who have the problem of being able to disengage from those criticisms by simply saying, "Well, that's about them. That's about the Muslims.
yeah.
That's about black people. That's about people coming across the border illegally. As long as it's not them, right?
Mm,
We're okay.
yeah.
Okay, we're okay." And so that's they're really, when you have that kind of rationale, right, and you go through that process repeatedly, then you want whatever this guy is selling. That's
Right.
what you want, and quit trying to pretend that you don't. You
And
know,
if you're Trump, if you got the people like that, and those people would be generally described as Trump's base, then you could say and do anything you want.
yeah. Well, 37% of Filipino voting voters are
Yeah,
are Trump's base.
yeah,
Yeah, we're the second highest Asian American group to support Trump.
right. After uh,
Vietnamese.
Vietnamese,
Yeah,
Vietnamese.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's really it's something, because I was talking with George Conway at one thing.
Pinoy. Isa
He's
Pinoy.
he's a
Isa
Republican.
Mestizo Pinoy.
Yeah, half Filipino guy, famed
Abogado.
Republican lawyer. And I said, what do you say to those Filipinos or other Asians who are just in there with Trump? What because Conway's a Lincoln Project never Trumper, and
He's a true
believes that
conservative. He's a true
yeah,
Reagan style conservative.
yeah, and he also believes that uh, that you know that Donald Trump is, well, he is so
He takes a very strong sociopathic,
yeah
psychopathic position.
psychological
Yeah,
position on Trump.
very strong.
But he's one where he just told me point blank, I don't know what to tell those people. If you can't see it and you can't do anything about it, I don't know what I can tell him. I mean, he's been fighting uh, that same fight with other Republicans, right?
Oh yeah.
Trying to save his party.
uh, you
So
know, without regard to race, ethnicity, or class. I mean, he's
yeah,
he's making arguments that are very strong, but they're based in psychology for the most part. And essentially he applies that to the legal standard and the political standard about who's fit, right, to be
right.
president. And from a psychological perspective, his position actually matches up really well with Mary Trump, right? With
Oh yeah, yeah.
Trump's psychologist niece.
Niece, yeah. I've seen her. She's got a new book out.
Yeah, it's a new
Seen her
one there.
interviewed, and she's fascinating that she it does reveal something about the family, You can say, oh, well, it's no accident that he's acting the way he is. But, you know, what do you do about it? And you can't excuse it. You say, here it is. But, all right. So I, I, I went to, I didn't go to Springfield, but I called up Springfield because it's a lie that Haitians are eating cats and dogs, but it's not a lie that people in Springfield are eating Asian food. They love Asian food. And
Yes.
I called up, I asked Google, give me the best restaurants, Asian food in Springfield. And there's one Filipino restaurant about 20 miles away from Springfield. But every time I called, everyone, at the Hung Lung, at the, some of these other restaurants, they all just, as soon as I said reporter, it was click, and they, they acted like typical Asian Americans, where they don't want to rock the boat. And here's what I also that no one talks about. I mean, people might infer this, but what is the demographics of Springfield? It's
Yeah.
75% white,
Right.
72,
Yeah.
75% white. It's 17% black. Is like 4% Hispanic, and it's 0.8 Asian American Native Hawaiian. 0.8. We don't even exist, but they'll eat our food. We don't exist, but they'll eat our food. And then I called
Well,
up one.
no, they'll eat sort of our food.
They'll
They'll,
eat sort.
they'll eat food that has been modified according to what the purveyors
Yeah.
feel is the cultural tolerance level of the local population.
All right, now the purveyors, when they're Asian, are pretty Asian. But I called one place that showed up on the Asian list. It turned out to be just an eatery, an American eatery, and I talked to the owner. He's on the list because he serves egg roll, and they're very popular egg roll. But it's like an egg roll, and inside it's stuffed with brisket and poblano cheese.
Okay, that's not
It,
bad. It's not
it doesn't
bad,
sound that way. I wish there
but
was a
it ain't
vegan
Asian.
version. I wish there was a vegan version.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so I talked to him, and he was interesting because this weekend there was supposed to be a cultural eating event, the taste of Springfield kind of thing, and Latin and Asian, and I guess American Nazi. I guess I wonder what that tastes like. So there
Yeah.
was supposed to be some kind of taste of Springfield.
It's chock full of nuts.
Chock full of it. Yeah, they canceled it. They
Okay.
canceled it because of the violence, and that's a sad thing. And the guy said, "Well, the Haitians don't really come to my restaurant unless they come as DoorDash drivers, to pick up takeout food." And he just said, for the most part, there's a lot of. He said his town was being misrepresented, and so I gave him the opportunity to say, he said, should Trump and Vance keep lying about Springfield? He said, well, if they're misinformed, they should stop spreading the information. But then I asked him, are you going to change your vote? Are you going to vote for these guys? And he could not, he would not answer. He
That's
could
a
not.
yes. That's a fucking
Well,
yes.
I suppose it's because we just shamed him into silence.
Well, yeah. I mean, he wasn't completely silent. He answered you about
Yeah,
how he felt
but
about, but
is he
after
going to?
when you push it, and you say, yeah, how's that going to affect you politically? Then it changes.
Well, I mean, maybe it's a secret ballot. He has time to change his mind. But last night, there's a lot of people showing up for Vivek Ramaswamy's town hall in Springfield, and he's just trying to take advantage of this. He doesn't address the fact that it's fake, that it's really fake news being spread by.
Or for that matter, that there's a lot of that right next to Haiti are people who have South Asian blood in their ancestry, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
From, people
From
that were brought in as substitutes for African slavery.
From India.
Yeah, from India.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
there are
sure.
actually more people of Indian descent were brought in after the Civil War than Chinese.
Yeah.
into the Caribbean. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I believe that. And this is the thing about Vivek Ramaswamy. He's Americanized. Harvard, went to businessman. Making a lot of money, ran for president on his own dime, and
As a
the
right
fact
winger,
as a right winger,
yeah.
and at some point you got to wonder. Okay, ambition can take you only so far. At some point you have to listen to your heart and not your wallet. And at some point you realize you're on the wrong side. And I guess he still feels, as long as he doesn't talk about the Haitian thing, he can still go into Springfield and capitalize on the hate, capitalize on the polarization. That's a real politician going in there. It's not even his issue. He's not running, going in there. It doesn't talk about Springfield, but he goes to Springfield to talk about everything else, to kind of like capitalize on the heat of Springfield.
He just wants to keep his name in the news. That's all.
Yeah, that's all.
He just wants to. He doesn't want to become irrelevant, and so he's actually to politicos like ourselves. He's demonstrating his irrelevance by doing that.
He could be more relevant by speaking out and saying, "Hey, you know what? Donald Trump is wrong here." But look, he not only kissed the ring, he kissed everything else, and it didn't work for him.
Yeah,
it didn't work for
him. It wasn't on his finger.
Right, wherever the ring was.
Wherever the ring was, man, it didn't matter.
But Vivek, it didn't work for Vivek, and so now he's sort of doing what he's doing.
Well,
all right.
He was doing the right wing jerk. I mean, he was up there doing the damn right wing monkey, and he ran a campaign based on that. Exactly.
The monkey.
He was absolutely ridiculous. But there is a substantial, mostly male Indian American equivalent to him. There are, remember when Modi came to town?
Oh yeah.
The first time he came to town after he was elected in India. I mean, wow, it was incredible. I mean, it was huge, man. The turnout in Santa Clara, because in Silicon Valley, it was unbelievable. So I talked to my colleagues about that, but my colleagues in my department at the time, who were Indian American, were women.
What they say?
Well, they said, that's a very strong element in the community, and it's very, as I described it, they said it's very male. But I said, and then you look at the academics and the people who were doing the admirable work of ethnic studies, right, and really supplying very valid, well-tested information, not just data, but also human-based data, interviews and stuff like that, rather than just surveys. They were doing great work, and the vast majority of them were women.
Yeah.
So that's who all the universities hired. They hired a whole lot of women in the both the humanities and social sciences. The men got hired in the hard sciences, engineering, math, and all that.
It's interesting because this election is going to be. They've said it. This is going to be a boy-girl election.
It is. It is. There is a gender split,
and
except among younger whites. I think among Gen Z whites, I don't think there's as much of a gender split. But among the ethnic groups, people of color, there's definitely a gender split.
Yeah. So, what is going to get those, or should Kamala Harris?
You're not going to change their minds. You're not going to change their minds. They're absolutely resistant. They're going to be there even if Trump loses. That element is going to be in constant rebellion. There's going to be the opportunity for not only lone wolf violence, but also some forms of organized violence. And I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned that you're going to get a formation of violence-prone groups like the group that blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City.
Look what's happening in Springfield. They've got bomb threats. They've got neo-Nazi groups that are around there that are going around marching. What and then this comes so soon after the second assassination attempt
Right.
on Trump, and I don't know what
Which
happened.
they also blamed again on the language of Harrison Walls, right?
Right, it's not Harrison Walls; it's their own language, frankly.
Yeah, but
And
their base listens to that stuff. So
yeah,
they're calling me a danger to democracy.
yeah,
oh,
they're a danger.
that man. I mean, I immediately want to pick up a shotgun and
Yeah.
start gunning for MAGA hats. I mean,
Well, I just think, yeah, we're it's worse than it was in 2020, because Trump doesn't want to be a two-time loser, and
well, actually, he's a three-time loser because
three-time.
he backed all those people for 2022,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and what only one won, you
yeah.
know,
So
and
I worry. I mean, the polls. I don't want to look too much at the polls.
it was Vance. He was the one guy that won.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's sort of the polls are creeping up for Harris, but you never know what's going to happen.
No, you don't,
And
especially with the Middle East
yeah, and
getting ready to blow up.
Harris was appearing with Oprah last night. Did you see
I
her
did. I
remarks about
watched it.
guns?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and
Listen,
that,
just I'm a gun owner, and if somebody comes to my house, they're gonna get shot.
yeah. I mean, hey, I mean that's one way to take the Second Amendment out of the hands of conservatives and say, hey,
I'm sure she's not angry with you anymore. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, she's you know.
I think she probably got over those times when you criticized her when she was DA over here.
But you know, one thing I'll say,
I don't know if your constituency, if your audience knows about some of that stuff, but we should talk about it sometime.
I
It's
have. I've talked.
It's not like we don't know these folks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've talked about
Yeah.
Harris and how she was political. And she was like in there with Frank Jordan, who was the Irish
The one-time
policeman
guy.
mayor.
He was a total
And
idiot as a
I
mayor.
mean, he was. I don't know. He was a nice guy. I thought
He got in the shower. He got in the shower half naked with two DJs. I mean, how smart do you have to be, man? That single thing really sank his mayoralty.
Well,
That's
look,
really dumb.
I will say this about Frank Jordan.
He's clean.
He was no. Well, actually, I won't. I mean, yeah, every time I met him, he was very cordial to me. I think that I'm pretty sure that the reason why Kamala Harris as DA didn't act on a certain thing was to kind of placate some of the Irish. I mean, that was
well, and cops.
And the Irish cops. Yeah.
Well, you need to make that direct connection. That's who Jordan was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jordan was.
And the cops and the firemen got a big base. And, they're well respected in San Francisco, even though a lot of the cops in certain districts are racist as hell.
Yeah. But the thing that got me about Kamala,
you're talking about the times when the cops were beating up on Asian people in the Richmond and in the Sunset.
Yeah.
And she wasn't prosecuting.
Yeah, not just the cops, but it was just white gangs.
Gangs, yeah.
White gangs.
The SDI, the West Portal group.
Yeah. Like around Terraville.
Yeah, that was the Murphys, wasn't it?
I don't know.
The Maggie McGuire's, the McGuire's.
I don't know. I don't know the gang names. I just know that there were a lot of complaints by Asians when nothing happened, and this was just the time when Asians were becoming more of a political force. But now, mind you, a lot of the Asians were conservative.
Yeah, they are.
So
Very
maybe they were in there with trying to placate Jordan, because Jordan was Republican too. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So all right, I bring up Kamala Harris, so not to talk about some of the stuff that happened to her when she was DA, but the whole idea about the guns. She's right. When you're an intruder and you got a gun and there's an intruder, you can shoot to kill.
Yeah, they got to be inside.
They got to be, but if it's an intruder in your house, it's fair game. And I know that because my cousin, went into a house by mistake, thought it was his house, thought it was his apartment. Guy had a gun, shot. DAs never prosecute. And Kamala Harris knows that someone will never prosecute her if she shoots someone in California with a gun who's an intruder. But some people would say, well, given the circumstances, she would be right? Well, someone makes a mistake, if she's being threatened, but if someone makes a mistake, I don't know, it's a little harsh. We just lost Dan. Dan, you froze on me. Oh, Dan froze on me. Maybe he'll come back. But it's true. Kamala Harris talks specifically about an intruder. And California law says that if you come into a home, the person whose home you went into has a right to shoot to kill. It's in the California homicide law as an acceptable form of murder, really. No DA would prosecute. And so having been a former DA, Harris spoke with authority. And in doing so, really sent a message to people who are, conservative law and order types. Hey, don't mess with Kamala. She's got a gun. She knows about the Second Amendment. She knows about the right to bear arms. She knows the law. Don't mess with Kamala. That's sort of the message I got. Well, God, I think Dan's not coming back. And so he froze out and then he disappeared. So I think we'll just say goodbye at this point because we covered all the bases. Kamala, her gun, Show A at the top. We talked about Springfield, a little bit about Vivek. The Springfield thing is not going away because the Republicans know it's a hot button issue that they can use instead of talking about policy, immigration policy, the immigration situation, just talk about Springfield. And because there you get the perfect connection, Springfield, economy, although the Springfield NAACP says they don't know of any instances where Springfield people were displaced, either in housing or in jobs. There's this massive influx of Haitians, about 15,000, which is a lot. I mean, there are now more Haitians than there are Asian Americans. But there are a heck of a lot of Asian restaurants there. Those Springfielders, they know, the white Springfielders know what to eat. Asian food. Don't eat dog. Eat the Asian egg roll with brisket. Hell with you vegans. Okay. So anyway, the issue's not going away because Donald Trump plans to visit next week. And let's hope, part of me hopes he does because then I can talk about it still. Part of me hopes he doesn't because Springfield was based on BS. He's building a mountain of BS because he doesn't want to talk about real policy. He doesn't want to talk about real immigration. He wants to talk about the fake issue of cats and dogs and Haitians, which is a lie. That's the shame of the Trump fans campaign. Oh, I think Dan's joining us again. I think. No, he's not joining us. Okay. Oh, there he is. So Dan,
Sorry, man, my battery died. I forgot. I'm I'm
that's all
on my
right.
I'm on my portable. I'm on
That's
the
all right. No
portable.
problem. It
Yeah.
just froze,
What
and
did
I
you say?
thought,
What did you
oh,
say? Wrap it up on Kamala having a piece.
having a gun. Yeah, yeah. The wrap up on Kamala having a gun is just that she's a DA, a former DA. She knows California law. California law allows you to shoot to kill if an intruder goes through your door. Boom. Don't mess with Kamala. She knows the law.
Yeah, yeah. It is. It's a little more restrictive, than a lot of other states. But you got to be really clear on self defense and intrusion, and there has to be a clear threat to life and limb. Yeah.
Actually, it just has to be you're an intruder. If you're an intruder, that's all you need. In the California law. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not threat. It's not threat to life or limb. I'm telling you, uh, DAs will never prosecute. Will never prosecute anyone who shoots an intruder who comes into their house. The
That's probably true. That's probably
DAs
true.
will never. They will never touch that case.
Well, see, what you're
But
talking about is what past precedent, right, has had. What I was talking about is past precedent where certain judges in cases tried to limit, right, the whether or not a killing was completely excusable, and they tried to make sure that, uh, for example, did was the individual trying the person who broke in, were they trying to retreat? That was a big issue in a lot of cases.
if someone was trying to retreat, well,
Yeah.
once
And
they
then
cross the line, you got them. That once you
yeah.
cross the threshold, once you're inside, once you're an intruder, the term is intruder, and it doesn't say intruder escaping, intruder wanting to leave,
Well, there
nothing.
are cases. There are cases that actually won where the person got shot in the back,
Yeah,
and they weren't armed, and so the case went against the total self defense, and they did get a homicide. Obviously, it was the lower manslaughter,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you know
See, this is the thing. A DA who wants to go after you will come after you aggressively, and they'll go for the lesser charges.
mhm.
But in the case of my cousin, Stefan Guillermo, who went into the wrong apartment, was shot, there was no appetite to go after any kind of charge, and they let the murderer go. That's why it sticks in. It's an issue for me. And when I hear someone mention the California murder law, and so clearly like Kamala Harris, it just
So
reminds me of the intruder case.
now the way that it's been interpreted more recently is consistent with the rightward swing generally, right?
Yeah,
In
to
those
shoot to
kinds
kill.
of cases, there has been a rightward, person's home is their castle,
Yeah,
swing, and it's not just in Florida or Texas or some of the
it's
states.
everywhere. It's
Yeah,
every even
yeah,
in Cal
it's everywhere, even in California.
even in
Yes,
California, the
yeah,
castle doctrine is sort
has
of
its effect.
the
Yes,
ruling theory.
yeah.
The home is your castle, shoot to kill. It's a variation or the foundation of stand your ground. But that's why Kamala. If
Stand your ground is even worse because you don't even have to be inside your home.
oh yeah, stand your ground's worse because you could be out in a park, out in a parking lot.
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
California
It's the
law,
same logic. It's the same logic.
home
It
your
it, it
castle.
excuses potentially homicidal behavior.
Yeah, and that's for pacifists that's a big deal. But hey, Kamala needs a gun, and I don't begrudge her gun. But I think all the right wingers who maybe it'll make right wingers like Kamala a little bit more. Maybe make them pronounce her first name.
Actually,
Correct.
did you hear Trump his last when he was talking at that Jewish American?
He said Kamala.
Yep, he used he pronounced it correctly.
Yeah, well, 60% of the Jews, I think, want Kamala, and he knows that, but he tried to guilt them. He knows how to appeal to Jewish guilt. He
Oh
said,
no! Oh
he
no!
said, if she becomes president, there's not going to be an
It could
Israel.
be if I lose. If I lose,
There's not
that
going to be
could
an
be
Israel.
because of the Jewish vote.
You're going to be buying
I'm
your
only
matzo
running at
balls, and
40%.
you'll be buying your matzah in
That's
Chinatown. There's no
that's
Israel.
okay.
There'll be no Israel.
You don't want responsible for me being victimized by them, do you?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Yeah, I
Donald
know.
Trump.
Geez, I know. It's so pitiful. I mean, it's
It's
really
bad.
so.
Now, I the thing we have here, we have a guy who's shameless and a liar versus Kamala, who is really, she is so disciplined. She
Oh yeah.
is so, she's almost Asianic. She's very, I don't want to say
Ah,
robotic, but she is very this is the way it's going to be. This, I mean, for, I know her astrological sign. It's very,
he's one of us.
it's very
She's a
anal.
Libra,
She's
or a
very,
Libra, if you want to be white about it.
she's
She's a
very
Libra.
anal,
Yeah.
very anal. That Kamala, and
Wait, you're
she's
saying we're all anal? I mean, the Libras are
no,
all
no,
anal.
no. I'm saying that she is. I'm
Yeah.
saying, I mean that's, you know,
She's
I'm
October 20th. She's close to Scorpio.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I've seen a lot of people say, "Hey, come on, be a little more undisciplined, Kamala. Let your
No,
hair
no,
hang down."
no. Yeah.
Yesterday, the gun thing was a kind of let your hair hang down moment
It was.
because she
It
said,
was.
"Oh, I got a gun, and if you're coming in, I'm shooting you. I'm getting a piece of you. And then she said, "I'll let my staff clean that up afterwards."
That's right.
So she was letting her hair down.
No, she was. Well, I think you're right. She's not going to convince people who are crazy ass gun owners. People who've got, 15 ARs, in their bedroom, right?
Yeah,
They're not. She's not going to win those kind of people over. She's not even going to win over. She might win over the target shooters. She might win over the people who have one or two weapons that are, clearly for self defense.
yeah,
But the neat thing is she takes away the argument that she's one of those people who's going to take away your guns.
right.
Okay, so
Yeah, that she's some kind of anti-gun crazy.
well, that's
Well,
the first thing they did. Every time a Democrat ran for office, every time
yeah,
somebody got the nomination, they're going to take your guns. That was the
yeah.
first.
Look,
And the gun sales would shoot up, automatically.
well, Dan, I'm living here in the valley. I'm now very open to guns.
Okay.
I am guns. I'm a gun owner now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, massage gun.
Handgun or shotgun? I mean, are you into sports?
Massage gun, and and it's great because I just shoot the pain away. It's great.
Yeah, no. You can run up. No, you can run up and either tickle the guy's G spot.
Yeah. Look, those massage guns, they are not sex toys. They are not sex toys. You've got the power of a TM1000. I said you got the TM1000, the palm of your hand.
Okay.
Power
It may not arouse you, but I'm going to tell you.
No. It's the power of
there are other people who might derive a lot of pleasure from.
I'm just saying I've got the power, the TM1000, that's 1,000 Thai masseuses right there in the palm of my hand. TM1000 right there.
No way. There's no way that thing can be the equivalent of somebody
I'm telling you,
walking
1,000
on your back. Man,
Yeah.
a Thai masseuse can walk on your freaking back.
Oh yeah, and plus the elbows, and she elbows you.
Oh yeah.
She elbows you.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I had a non-sexual massage. Frankly.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah. I had to pay extra for the non-sexual. I said, That's how good I was. I said, okay, I'll pay you extra if you don't do anything. Just touch the parts that need help. And
Well, that's leaving a lot to the masseuse in terms of judgment. That was
yeah,
not
like I
that
said,
was not a good thing. That
that
was,
that's why I bought my massage gun. That's why I bought my
that's
massage
called a negative pregnant.
gun. Yeah. That's why I bought my massage
It
gun.
leaves a big opening for.
All right, Dan, I'm going to swish us out to, I guess we talked about it all. We talked about Shohei, Springfield. Oh, Donald Trump might go back to Springfield next week. Should he go back to Springfield?
I want him to go back to Springfield, because the more he does it, the more stupid he looks.
I, I,
So
I think exactly. And you know what? Uh, the Humane Society of Springfield says we can adopt more dogs and cats that week too. And that'd be great. That'd be great because,
we can put him up for adoption. Yeah.
and because we can get rid of the overpopulation problem without resorting to the Haitians. We just adopt them out to the standard people. Okay. All right. So Dan, that's it.
Yeah, but I'm surprised that people didn't only a couple of people raised the fact that when the Vietnamese were coming in in the mid 70s, the first groups were coming in. And one person came in with a dog head in their luggage. Remember that?
I don't remember that.
Okay. Well, somebody got caught, at the inspection, and
they were going to use it for soup or something.
I don't know. They had a dog head in there. They had a cooked dog head in their luggage.
Oh, it was cooked.
It was cooked. Yeah.
Oh.
God, no. That thing, if it wasn't cooked, that thing would be spoiling on the trip over, man.
Would a dog head be like a fish head?
I don't know. I have no knowledge. I just know that was found, and so
a cooked dog head.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so, well, I'm glad it was cooked.
Yeah.
But the thing is that immediately all kinds of stuff came out about Asians eating dog, right? Yeah. And I had been personally, I wouldn't call it insulted, but I certainly took offense. But the widow of the German or Austrian man who established the OSS, the forerunner of the CIA, said, I loved the Filipino people, she said. She was sitting right next to me at a banquet.
Yeah.
And it was a banquet that I can't tell you who threw the banquet because then, it would be divulging stuff that I'm not supposed to say. But anyway, so she was there and she said, I love the Filipino people, but the one thing that I find offensive is that they eat dog. And this other professor, senior to me, older than I, and white, rushed to my defense. And, and I didn't even have a chance to respond to her. But he said, well, that practice is not unique, among all peoples. There are people all over the globe that may eat dog, but they're usually raised for a specific purpose, food service and all that. And it's not like they go around slaughtering people's pets and stuff, and so that was the end of that. But I just wanted to add that as a story that tells you, and this was back in the.
It does happen. What year? 70s, 80s.
This was in the 90s.
90s.
This was in the 90s.
Yeah. That's the thing. Filipinos and other Asians have been they've been castigated for eating dogs. In some ways, the Filipinos, they were brought to America in 1904 to show off their dog eating skill, right? At the World Fair.
At the World exhibit, yeah.
So at the Filipino Expo, and they
had it. Well, yeah, it was a World Expo, but there was a whole Filipino recreation of a Filipino village in
1,200 headhunters. Yeah, 1,200 natives. I mean, it was the main. It was like the expo within the expo. And
the funny thing about the show was that the people didn't live at the human zoo. They actually left the expo and then lived among, the regular people all around Chicago, right? So,
Oh, St.
so
Louis, St. Louis.
St. Louis, I'm sorry. And so they dressed up. They dressed up like normal Westerners, and went around the town. So it is kind of weird, right?
Yeah,
They're essentially play acting themselves in what's supposed to be a recreation of their ancestral and current environment, right?
right. And but they weren't locked up in like a zoo, but
That's
they
right.
were displayed.
That's right. Exactly.
So it was like a cosplay.
It was somewhat theatrical, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And did you know that the number one performer at the World's Fair was a guy named James Robert Amok?
No kidding.
I
And,
did.
and, he- and his name was spelt that way,
AMOK.
AMOK.
AMOK. James Robert Amok he was the star of the 1904 World's Fair because he spoke English. He was one of the few who spoke English,
Sure.
and he later joined the troupe that went all around the country. James Robert Amok. I did my piece. I did one of my first shows on James Robert Amok at dressing up as a headhunter, eating dog, and he would complain. He would complain that we don't eat dog all the time, just
That's
on
right.
special occasion.
That's right. And they were raised for particular food purposes.
Yeah.
And there was also a preference for colors of dogs.
Oh, I didn't know that. What color did they like?
Well, I don't know. If these guys, these Ilocano old guys, my father's generation, were pulling my leg or what. But yeah.
Oh, they were telling me.
They liked younger. They were raised for a particular purpose. Darker haired, younger dogs and all that. My father complained that whenever he ate dog, which was a rare occasion, it would cause his blood temperature to go up. He would feel like he was running a fever. He would get the sweats. So he really didn't prefer it.
Just less hot sauce, Manong. Less hot sauce.
Cut the silis out.
Yeah,
Too much sili there.
No
Too much
sili.
sili. Yeah.
The pepper, the cedar.
Yeah.
Pepper.
Anyway,
Cedar pepper.
so this issue came up when the Southeast Asians, when the Vietnamese started arriving.
Yeah.
And then people started talking about people killing squirrels and running into the Golden Gate Park and getting ducks and all that kind of stuff. Now that gets a little tougher because if they were taking ducks, that's consistent with the fact that for thousands of years Asians have been eating ducks.
Ducks. Yeah.
So
it's
a little tougher.
Yeah. This is the thing.
Remember that, and then what's her name? Jackie Spear.
Was she in there?
And she proposed a law, and I believe it was a state law, not a local ordinance, against eating dog. And Rodell Rodice wrote a column that said in proposing this law, Jackie Spear has proven that and we supported Jackie Spear for her election. The Filipino American community supported Jackie, which is true.
All right, what did Rodell say? He said there was
Rodell said by proposing this law, Jackie Spear proves that she has all the characteristics of a dog except one: loyalty. He actually wrote that, man.
Well, I mean, actually, hats off to him. Jackie Spear retired, right?
Well, hats off to him. I mean, he was like accepting this condemnation of Southeast Asia, particularly Vietnamese, right? But instead of saying that, well, Filipinos are, occasionally eat dog, or historically or traditionally certain Filipino ethnic groups have done that, and then putting it in context, he simply says she's a dog except for loyalty, And I thought that was just horrible, right? I mean, he's practicing a kind of cultural nationalism, contorted cultural nationalism
Well, I
that is quasi racist in nature. So he's
support
accusing
her.
her of it would have been better to accuse her of a form of racism,
Mhm.
than to, because of her generalization in essence,
Well,
than to say what she did.
oh,
Hats
bless.
off. He
I
gets
just I think someone had to speak out, against the law. The law didn't pass, did it?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I don't think it did it.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think
We're still eating dog next week, so you don't be late. So it must
no,
have,
it's 2 weeks.
yeah,
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah, don't be late. Yeah, bring the extra dog.
Yes, right.
Bring the hairless one. No,
Yeah,
I
yeah. No,
I
they have a vegan dish that is cast in the shape of a dog head. It's
yeah,
vegan.
yeah.
It's vegan.
Well,
So it
look,
it, it, it
I
satisfies at least it satisfies the iconic, it's an iconic
the
kind of treatment of the
right, the visual appeal. Yeah. Well, like I said,
that's it.
I used to make fun of dog eaters, but you can't. And I think the whole thing is funny because the Haitians now show that anyone, I mean, Asians have been othered in this way for years, for decades
That's right.
in history. And now here are the Haitians. And the Haitians are really, it's the dominant community, minority community in Springfield are the African Americans.
Yeah.
And the Haitians are, I mean, I guess the African American community is embracing them, although I have seen Asian African Americans interviewed who are anti-Haitian, and I've
Yeah,
seen
they are.
the
Yeah.
Haitians have sort of like kind of conglomerated on their own, and they're, like I said, there's like 4.2 Hispanics and
Well, there's a lot of
0.8.
stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff about Haitian behavior that people have complaints about. So
Oh yeah,
so
like,
beyond and one of the biggest ones that I saw, in other people's writing, in other reportage, as it
mm,
were,
yeah.
especially local Ohio reportage, is the complaints about their driving.
Oh yeah, they're giving bad Asian drivers a run for their money. I think.
I don't,
I
I
think.
don't think you have to qualify Asian with bad. I think all you have to do is say they're giving Asian drivers a.
Yeah, yeah. I think they need. I think they need Waymo in Springfield. They need Waymo. Someone
Oh, boy.
give them a Waymo franchise.
Yeah, yeah. We had some relatives come out of town, into town from out of town, not that far away, a couple hundred miles, but
Yeah.
they freaked out because they were noticing these cars that were driving around the city with no driver,
What is that?
and
Is
and
that
then
an
that's the first thing they commented on when we got together, right? We share a meal was, how many of these cars do they have? We saw two or three of them just on one street, and they're freaking out, man.
yeah.
And I said, well, here I hate to tell you this before we have lunch, but Waymo's got a contract for Fresno.
Ooh, Waymo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're coming out to you, man. They're coming out to the
yeah,
valley. They're coming, I don't. They didn't mention your town specifically. I'm not going to
yeah,
mention it,
yeah.
just
Well,
in case,
like I
just in
said,
case you get Springfield bombers, start threatening you.
Springfield. That's what the Asians. Well, it could be an Asian driver because they're like 0.8
Yes,
Asians. He
that's
was an Asian, invisible
yeah,
driver.
yeah. Yeah, you never know. You never
Yeah.
know if one caused a serious injury or maybe even a death.
Well, actually, there's that one famous case where there was an Asian or Haitian
Yeah,
drunk driver.
and a kid got
Killed the
killed.
kid.
Right.
So that's sad. So we're not making fun of that. We're making fun of
no, and in fact, the dad said these
right
people who are
politicized.
using my son's death in this way to try and go after an entire community, are really condemnable.
Yeah,
So
I just I feel kind of kinship to Springfield because I have relatives in the on my wife's side out there in Ohio, and I think I know what they're like, and they are conservative. There's a lot of Trumpers out there, but they're decent people. Like if you read my column on the Aldef blog, I talked to one guy who was a decent enough fellow who owned a restaurant, and he called his town welcoming
okay.
and misunderstood. And, I just, but the fact that we know that this whole thing was a lie with the dogs and cats, we're still talking about it. We won't talk about it we won't talk about it if Donald Trump and JD Vance, if they stop talking about it, then we'll stop talking about it.
Yeah, that's even unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate that they're going to try and keep this thing alive, but I also think that it's unfortunate that if they stop talking about Springfield, we'll put it behind us and look for the next stupid thing that these guys do. And
Yeah.
I think we don't do that enough. I don't think the media does it enough. Go back and do a follow up on a story like that, right?
On Springfield, look, the thing was a lie. What they need to do is really talk about the immigration and the
That's
border,
right.
and talk
Exactly.
about what I mean. The conflation of all these different things. These people, the Haitians, were legal, not illegal. They were temporary protected status. It's like they're seeking refuge. They weren't normal migrants. And then but to use the Haitians to say all immigration is bad, all the border policy
Yeah,
of
that's
the
right. That's right.
Biden is bad, is just wrong. And the only thing it does is it makes things emotional.
There was a great article. Oh God, I should. I'm
By
gonna go
Emil,
find it. I'm gonna find it and I'll send it to you.
by
But
Emil Guillermo. Did I write it?
you've written several great articles, but uh, I gotta go find it. I
Okay,
don't.
all right.
I think it was in Atlantic,
That's all
but
right.
they
I
describe what's really going on with
yeah,
the white folks that want to subscribe to what Vance and Trump do,
yeah.
and he
There's a
does it on a class and cultural basis, and it's really quite brilliant,
yeah.
frankly.
There are a lot of good things when people like go down there and fly into Columbus or fly into Cincinnati or Dayton and drive over there. You see the truth, and the truth is not. The truth is like this is what they're making. People will be surprised at what Trump and Vance are. That they're making a big deal of this, but they're making a big deal of this because this is basically what the election of 2024 is about. You take a place that is 75% white, and suddenly they have an influx of non-whites, and that is really a composite of the way they see America being destroyed by the blood of immigrants, America being destroyed, the whiteness of America being destroyed.
Yeah.
That really is why they can't give up Springfield, because Springfield is the America they want in a microcosm. Once again, look at the demographic
Well,
analysis.
it's because the abruptness, right, of the arrival of initially 12,000 Haitians, and then it's just also a very small population. What
Yeah,
the whole
56,000 in the town.
right.
Oh, you got 15,000 now, so that's about what 20%.
Yeah, close. But I was going to say 1 out of 5. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's yeah,
and
but
and
that's a large number.
that's equal
Yeah.
to the black population, and it's greater than the Asian population.
Yes.
It-
Yes.
it- like I said, there's a Filipino restaurant 21 miles from Springfield.
Well, what town is it in?
It's in Fairborn,
Okay.
Ohio,
That's interesting.
south and west. But like I said, they've got a ton of a lot of sushi places. They got at
Right.
least 2 or 3. They got a ramen place. They got a couple of point takeout type joints
Yeah.
and Chinese. So we know that the white Springfielders aren't eating dog. They're eating Asian food.
I wonder if they're going to get into Haitian food eventually.
Asian, not Asian. Yeah. Hey, I'm
Yeah.
reading it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so
Yeah.
Dan, all
All
right.
right.
So look, let's wrap it up for the week. Hey, thanks for joining us, Dan, and we'll talk
Thanks
to
for
you
having me, as always. I
as always.
appreciate
Yeah.
the ability to enjoy discourse
Oh yeah. Oh,
with
hey,
such
look,
genteel.
I didn't mention this. I think I don't know if we talked about it yet. If I talked about it with you, Ted Fang has
Oh, yeah,
passed.
yeah. Passed away.
And it passed away a week ago last Monday. So I know we haven't talked about it yet. I
No,
don't
we
think.
have. I think we
And
talked about it privately or something.
yeah, well, tell me, the Fang family. It gets to me because they owned Asian Week, and they
Yeah,
let
yeah.
me have a
And
column.
that was a good paper.
Yeah, they let me have my voice, and so I'm indebted to John Fang, Ted's father. John Fang married to Florence Fang, both Republicans, but they
Hmm.
didn't care about how liberal or how far to the left I was. I'm not all that far to the left, but they were Republican, or
Yeah,
what passed for Republicans in San Francisco, which is
sure.
conservative Democrats, right? But uh, John Fang, Florence Fang, they were both, from Taiwan. Then there was James Fang, who was on the Bart board. He ran Asian Week. Doug Fang, young guy. Now Doug and James are gone. They passed away years ago. Now Ted was the only one left, and it was under his watch that they had to close Asian Week 2014, or 2010. But the reason why they closed is because the family was drained after the whole Examiner thing.
Yeah, yeah.
They bought the San Francisco Examiner for, get this, $100, and they got the afternoon paper plus the major metropolitan daily and afternoon paper had a heyday, right? The San Francisco Examiner is a broadsheet. Plus, they got $66 million in a subsidy from the Hearst, and all of this was to allow the Hearst, which owned the Examiner, to sell to the Fangs so that the Hearst could buy the San Francisco Chronicle
That's right.
and establish, get a better paper. So the Hearst loved the deal. The Fangs thought, hey, $100 and we get $66 million, good deal. But it wasn't to be. Newspapers it was the beginning of the end, and they were hemorrhaging money.
Yep.
And $66 million wasn't enough.
No, and it's ironic because weren't they the family that established the Advertiser?
Not the Advertiser, but the San Francisco Independent,
Oh, okay.
which was
That also was a good paper.
yeah, it was
That
out
was
of San Mateo and San Francisco, and they called it was an advertiser, meaning basically they ran ads and a little light on the journalism, but it did some, and they did it because they had a printing press. But
Yeah, they did local issues. They covered
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah,
very
true.
local neighborhood centric,
Yeah.
coverage.
Right, and because of their printing press, it was all because they had a printing press. They
Mhm.
started those papers, and then when they sold the Examiner, or they bought the Examiner for $100, they gave up the printing press.
Mm.
That was the killer. they gave up the printing press, and they got 66 million in exchange, for over 3 years to run the Examiner. They thought they were going to be Citizen Fang. Didn't work out that way. It's sad. And now, if they had 66 million, they could do a startup online. If only they had the money now, but they don't. Different times. They were kind of out of sync buying a newspaper.
Yeah, they didn't anticipate the change, but who could? Who could anticipate change to
Andy Grove of Intel said newspapers were dead, and no one believed him, but now he's dead and newspapers are dead too. But
yeah, it really is sad, the print media. So some print media that has made the transition to digital. I have a lot of subscriptions that are the digital version, right, of some of the great magazines. New Yorker, Atlantic. A lot of the political magazines too. I get them online, but it's not cheap.
Yeah.
It ain't cheap.
Yeah, I didn't want to besmirch Andy Grove, but I did look him up. He did die in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
But he early on said newspapers were dead. They're dying, especially an afternoon newspaper. So, but I try to put a positive spin and say, oh, the Fangs, they should own this, and they'll do fine. I'm on record. I said, this is an opportunity for the Fangs, the first Asian American owners of a major daily. So
yeah, that's right.
It was I thought it was a big deal, and then it just it just wasn't, and it was sad.
They hired some good writers too. They copped some really good writers.
Yeah, they got Warren Hinkle. Warren Hinkle wrote for them.
Yeah, Hinkle,
the late Warren Hinkle. But I stayed at Asian Week, and
Asian Week was a good paper. I have a lot of them as examples.
Yeah,
I have more than I should keep, so I'm sorting them out and keeping the ones where they covered really important stuff.
Go to my Aldef blog. There's a link to my first column I did for Asian Week in 1995, and also a link to the Asian Week database, which is what Ted was trying to do at the end, and it didn't really make it, it's still in the process, but it was one of his pet projects at the end. He'd call me
digitize it all.
Yeah, he used Chinese engineers, AI engineer experts to try to take the digital form of Asian Week and make it an archive for scholars and anyone who wants to see what was happening between, the 1980s and now in Asian America. As a national news weekly in English, it really very comprehensively captured it all.
It was really good.
Yeah. So, you got to hand it. There was no one tried to do that, and they did, and I was very proud to be part of it. And Ted was the prime mover in the final years, because his father, his brothers had all died. It was Teddy and his mom, and now it's just Florence Fang, the mom, who's in her 80s, and I know they did well in real estate, and I think they did okay in terms of, they did okay in terms of surviving the Examiner, but the family. Oh, they also owned the Flintstone house.
Oh no!
Yeah, the Flintstone house, and
do they own it now? Because it's all fixed up and it's like a tourist attraction.
No, it's always had the animals. Oh no, maybe the animals are new, but no, they've always owned it. They still own it. I think they rented
it. It got painted differently, and the grounds are green, so I think they put synthetic lawn out there.
They
But I'm usually driving, so I don't spend that much time looking at it while I'm
well,
driving on 280.
we had a party there in about 5 years ago, and it's wild. The house is smaller than you think,
Yeah,
and but the animals are bigger than you think. When you got
yeah,
a big giraffe and a big
yeah, that's right.
dinosaur in your backyard, but it's kind of cool to have the eccentric home in this place in Hillsboro.
Yep,
So,
yeah, and the Hillsboro folks really love it.
oh yeah, yeah,
They
they love
really
it.
love it.
Yeah. So anyway, rest in peace, Teddy Fang.
Yeah. Was
Oh
it
boy,
when's somebody trying to turn it into a B&B, an Airbnb?
I think they do rent it out occasionally for parties and stuff like that.
Well,
Well,
parties is one thing, but overnighters.
yeah. Well, the Fangs had a party there. Like I said, like 5 years I went to one. They might have some others, but I think they might Airbnb it for special occasions. But it's a it's an interesting house. It wouldn't it you know I fantasized living there once, but you know
Not for me. I mean,
it,
yeah, architecturally, it's beyond me. So
yeah it's just an Adobe structure, just an
yeah, it
Adobe.
is. It basically is. Yeah.
Look up if you Google Flintstone house. I guess it would be in there, right? I got a picture of me standing in front of the Yabba Dabba Doo sign. And let's see, Flintstone House, Hillsboro, Flintstone House, Bay Area. Yeah. Oh yeah, they painted it. My God, I
I
didn't
said,
realize.
I said, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, she purchased it in 2017, and I think she still owns it.
Yeah,
So
they fixed it up.
she's got she's got a Bigfoot statue, and yeah,
Wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be funny if an ape-like being came out and started to try to mate with that statue? But anyway,
oh yeah,
yeah, that would be
that'd be
cool.
that'd be very funny, Dan.
We should put our game cameras on
Yeah.
the property, man. You never know what's going to happen. There's enough foliage in that area, and
All right.
you know, the canyon leads to Crystal Springs, so
Yeah, that's true. Well, Dan, let's end it now. I'm gonna swish you out. Thank you for joining us.
Peace
Dan,
out.
peace out.
Peace out.
Daniel Phil Gonzalez, my friend, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies, San Francisco State University, Professor Emeritus. Emeritus. So we talked about all sorts of things. If you missed any of it, just go to the front. We talk about Shohei Ohtani, talk more about Springfield, talk about shame and Hia, talk about Kamala's gun. And big deal tonight, I become officially a laughter yogi. What does a laughter yogi do? Tune in next week, I'll tell you. No, I'll tell you. It's therapeutic laughter. Therapeutic laughter. Therapeutic laughter. Fill you in next week. Also, review some of the shows from this week. I really get upset about the healthcare system on my Tuesday show. Communication. Not so good. Not so good. All right, that's it. Of course, we like to meditate. We believe in the power of love. Honest to God. Power of laughter and the power of love. And so, Sharon Salzberg says, the reason you meditate, she likes the definition of mindfulness that was given her by a 10-year-old kid in Oakland. He said, mindfulness, it means I don't punch that other guy in the face. That's why you be mindful. It's good to be mindful. You're in control. Control of the things, of the actions. You're in control. And you're at peace. And you do it by sending out the love, sending out the love, and watching it come back in return, twofold, threefold. And so, a little loving kindness, meditation. As I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil